Welcome back to the Show My Scars podcast. I'm your host, Derek Duker. You know that saying, if I were to win the lottery, you'd know because there would be signs. Well, for me, that telltale sign would be weekly trips to a massage therapist. I feel like a brand new person after every session, in body and mind. Which doesn't come as a surprise to our guest today, Bryant, who is a licensed massage therapist. Part of Kara's massage background is in precision neuromuscular training, or PNMT, which is more clinical than a typical massage. During PNMT, the therapist will use their understanding of musculoskeletal pain and perhaps some orthopedic testing, along with the typical feeling around with their hands to determine the source of pain or tightness. She's also trained in somato-emotional release and trauma-informed care. I had never heard of somato-emotional release before I met Kara, so I was fascinated to learn more about it. She explains a little more deeply in the interview, but it is exactly how it sounds. Massage meant to release emotional blockage within the body. Since massage is one of my most effective self-care tools, I knew I had to talk to Kara on the podcast, so here we go. This is my conversation with Bryant. What led to your career in massage?
I basically didn't know what I wanted to do with my life when I graduated from high school, and I was raised in the Assemblies of God. And so there was this kind of a little bit of talk about me going to like Evangel or something, but I didn't feel pulled in any direction. So I kind of just was like, I am not going to do that. I'm going to take a year off from high school and I'm going to wait and see what comes up versus doing college or whatever without having anything in mind. And so I kind of took a year off and I worked at Gailey's and Bridges for Youth, like just doing little jobs. And then I was looking on MSNBC. Like they used to have their homepage, like the top 10, like every beginning of the week, there would be a new top 10 list. And so it was like their MSNBC homepage, which back in those days, like 2009, you still looked at websites like that.
Yeah.
So there was this one that was the next 10 careers that are going to grow in the next 10 years or something. And massage therapist was one of those careers. And it just piqued my interest. I had, growing up, always been a very touchy-feely person. And so I would massage my friend's shoulders or, give little hand massages. And people would always say, like, you're really good at that. And I would be like, okay. And they'd be like, well, you should do that for a living. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. And so I had like massage, like people telling me to do massage. So it had piqued my interest at that time. And I kind of clicked on the link and it led me to another page that was like, if you want just more information, we can send you some information. And I was like, sure. And I clicked it and I was thinking, I might get something in the mail. I don't know. It was like the next day that I got a phone call, literally the next day I got a phone call from a massage school in town called PMTC, Professional Massage Training Center. And it was located on Commercial Street. And they were like, hi, hello, we see that you're interested in massage therapy. Would you like to come take a tour of the school? And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. This is happening. This is going. Yeah, I'm going to come look at it. And so within I went and took a tour and within a month I was enrolled and I was at the time, there were two different programs you could choose from. You could choose the spa program or the clinical program, and I chose the clinical. The difference between those was in the spa program, you would learn more like hot stones and more body treatments. And in clinical, at the time, there was a special modality integrated in with the whole clinical program called precision neuromuscular massage therapy that is based out of Champaign, Illinois. And so there's 5 seminars that were integrated in with the whole year. So you would do 3 months of work and it would lead up to the first seminar. So then you would have a 4-day seminar with those specific instructors with that modality. And so I had a really good training, I would say, to begin with. I kind of focused in on neuromuscular massage, very clinical, kind of problem solving. And then I'm just going into what happened after I got into massage. But then fine. I graduated from massage school, and there was a spa in town called Zen 3. And it was about 2 weeks before I was supposed to graduate, and I was looking at places to work, and there was a spa that was beautiful. It looked like a Spanish, beautiful, like, place in Europe or something. Like, it was just, it had a courtyard, and I was reading on their website, and I just felt really connected or compelled. And so I ended up calling them and just being like, hi, I'm about to graduate from massage school, and I want to work at your spa.
That's cool.
And so they were like, oh, okay, come in. And I interviewed, and I had a job there almost immediately. And I worked there for about 8 years.
So I was interested when I came across your page that you kind of work with, it said work with the central nervous system to kind of help people with trauma.
Autonomic nervous system, yeah.
Yeah, so can you explain kind of how that works?
How does it work?
Yeah.
Well, everything we do has to do with the what did I just say? the central nervous system. Mm-hmm. So anytime your body is getting touched, you're stimulating proprioceptors and sensory responses that communicate to your brain, and then your brain interprets things and, can send messages back down, right? That's kind of how just manual mechanical massage works. You are inputting sensory messages, and the brain is receiving them and then sending messages back. So if you have a really tight spot on your shoulder or in your muscle and you press on it, not too hard but not too light, there should be a communication loop that happens with the brain, and then the brain will say, oh, this is not behaving correctly, and will send the messages down to say, relax shoulder or relax muscle, or to make the right corrections. Because our bodies are always trying to get back to homeostasis, right? That's what we're always trying to do. With trauma, that will block that function from happening. So your body wants to get back to healing and processing, but trauma puts a block, or it throws a wrench into that loop that's happening, right? Of the way that the brain communicates with the outside world and also with our own bodies and back and forth. So it gets messy, or, I think of a train on some tracks, and then the tracks get messed with and the train can't go forward, right? So that's what trauma can do. So with the trainings that I've taken and a lot of the community that I've been around, which is a lot of therapists, and from my own experience of healing, work with clearing out the gunk or the trauma somatically or from a body standpoint to help restore that original loop, the way our bodies communicate, right? So that's what I'm kind of doing whenever I'm doing specific work that is with that intent.
Is that a specific type of massage?
Yeah, so there's a lot. So modalities are what we call different kinds of massage. So like neuromuscular or Swedish, those are different modalities. There's actually quite a few, or I would say it's more growing. It's kind of a hybrid because there is a lot of cognitive therapy world coming together with massage world. There are starting to be hybrid modalities where there can be massage that has more of a therapeutic, not just trigger point work or restoring physical work, but like working on some trauma. Like there's a trauma informed care training you can take. I took the Upledger Institute's craniosacral training, and so I did Cranio 1 and Cranio 2, and then that leads into Somato Emotional Release 1 and Somato Emotional Release 2. So if you take certain trainings, you're able to work with somebody who has trauma in a way that you don't either have the education or the experience in doing with more general massage. I will say that there is specific boundaries where like you can't do certain things that might be out of the scope of practice like of a massage therapist. So like you can't do talk therapy. So there's a lot of growing, I think, or blending between the mental health community and like therapy and counseling and body work and somatic work and massage. Being touched at all releases oxytocin into our bodies and helps to put us into a parasympathetic state, or the rest and digest state, if you will, where your body can then do repair and do digestion and hormone regulation and all of the things that it does whenever it's resting. Your body does a lot of work when you're getting that true REM or true restful sleep. Your body does a lot of balancing and healing. So even just getting into the relaxed state is going to benefit your mental health. I personally offer Thai massage. I don't know are you familiar with that? Yeah. Which has really good for decreasing like really restricted muscles and joints, so you can be more decompressed, you can move your body more. It's just a really good modality for people who can't stretch very well.
You said I'm not going to pronounce it right, but you said something that started with an S.
Somato emotional release. Yeah. So that is a specific subset of the Upledger Institute's. So it's like their version of a somatic body work that is like under their umbrella, so to speak. I'm sure you could get online and find other versions that might have the word somatic in it. Somatic just technically means soft tissue, but a lot of it's a word that's being used right now by the mental health community to describe body-based healing. You can find somatic yoga practices. You can find somatic, even just practices getting into your internal introception of like feeling what's going on inside. There's a lot of different somatic versions of therapy, I would say. And then EMDR, I think, is a little bit somatic. There's a company in town called Beyond Healing Center, and they do a specific type of work or a training for therapists called Somatic Integration and Processing. It's called ZIP. So you definitely can find a lot. It's growing right now, is what I would say. But the somato-emotional release has a lot to do with, now this is going to sound crazy, but it's not. So with craniosacral, you are becoming sensitive enough to feel the cerebral spinal fluid flow inside of the brain, right? So you can feel this rhythm and movement that's very, very, very minute. It's small. So through those trainings, you're honing your sensitive skills. You're able to feel things in a really, really micro way. Whenever you have done that kind of work, you start to use the rhythm, the craniosacral rhythm, as an indicator for when something might be significant to the body or not for healing. So I might go around the body and I just set my hands very gently on somebody's, just the tops of their feet. And I just wait and I'm like feeling, and I like look up the body and I'm like, okay, what, just my eyes will get drawn to something. So I'd take a moment and I'm like, okay, their head is a little bit cocked to the right, and maybe their left hip bone is a little bit raised. So then I kind of will go to those spots and I'll just hold and feel, and like change will start to happen. And I can also be sensing the craniosacral rhythm. So there's a whole process that can happen with, it's like extreme, gentle, light touch that can provide a specific kind of healing to the body. And usually it's somebody who their brain and their body really are not connecting at all. Like it might be very, very unconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're working to bring, like shh to the brain. Like,
Yeah.
shh, it's okay. You don't have to think right now. You don't have to figure anything out right now. Your body has wisdom and knowledge about what it needs and it doesn't need. And it just needs, first of all, to feel safe. And then another nervous system to come in and be like, here. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
I wish you could see what my hands are doing.
Yeah.
But
Are you a business owner with a fantastic product or service but aren't sure how to build it into a brand? Two Oddballs Creative is the team you need. They can build your marketing and communication strategy on a solid foundation of well thought out branding. They can take care of everything from your logo, all other graphic design, photography, videography, and copywriting. By working with the Oddballs, you can be sure that your brand will communicate the values and personality of your brand. You can reach the Oddballs by going to 2oddballs.com. That's the number 2, oddballs.com, or calling 417-986-6332. I definitely notice, number one, like when I have depression, there's definitely inflammation going on all over my body. Mm-hmm. Like if I go through a pretty deep depression, even if just for a day, the next day I'll wake up and feel like I've been working out like all day long. Mm-hmm. I think what kind of makes sense for that trauma release is, so someone who's been in pain for a long time, their brain will automatically at some point like, okay, that is constant.
This is default.
Yeah, so we're going to not recognize that anymore. My therapist had said that my reaction, like, because I laugh a lot, like during massage when they get to the tight spots. Mm-hmm. He's like, that's still like a protection mechanism in your brain. So it makes sense how it would connect to your mind and body and then allow things to pass through naturally. Yeah. Is that kind of how that works?
Or like heal, or even like the way we can move emotion or tension or energy or whatever out of our bodies is by experiencing them and like allowing that process to fully go through its loop of experience, right? Like if you're holding a lot of grief in your chest and you've been holding grief in your chest for 20 years and your body is holding on to that, that's physical. The thing that you're protecting yourself from or avoiding, which makes sense. Like our brains are like, oof, too much. Like we can't, right? But that has to go somewhere. So it stays in the body. But the way to get it out or to feel it or to release it or to process it is by letting it come up. And if your body's like, no, this is, 20 years we haven't been letting this come up, then then it's like a slow process of like, okay, well, let's just create safety, and then like say to the body, just how about a chip off? Like, how about this? And allow that grief, that cry, experience the feeling, allow the feeling to come out and be felt, which means getting weird. It means like
Yeah.
you might yell, you might cry, you might grind your teeth, you might like, ugh, like whatever. That all is a part of experiencing. And that's scary. I mean, it can be really scary. So it's one of those things that's like, it doesn't have to be all at once. It can be very gentle and it can be slow, and we can work with where that nervous system is to say, okay, what is that nervous system willing to do right now? Like, can you dip a toe in? Can you look at it? Can you, where's that line? And then let's just be there. And then, that is still creating new nerve pathways in your brain to like, oh, I can do this.
What have you seen as far as like increasing flexibility or just with massage? Like, what are some of the physical benefits? I mean, they're probably obvious, but the physical benefits of massage.
Important benefit of massage therapy at all is just that. Like, it's just like, here's the body, here's stimulation. So then I think about deep tissue massage, right? And there's this huge trend, or I guess, I don't know, a lot of the general public that's like, it must be deep, it must be hard, it must be painful for it to work, which is not the case at all. So a lot of people who might be receiving massage on a regular basis are inflicting, ouch, pain on top of what already might be there. So that will be like, then the body will be like, okay, we're going to let the endorphins come out and it'll feel good for a minute, but it's really sore and it's actually taking in a little bit more trauma. So we're still going to keep shutting it down. So then you're in this deep tissue loop where you're like, I want the deep tissue, hard massage, make it hurt. And then, oh, I feel sore after. And then your body's still it's not getting better. And I'm not saying that deep tissue isn't important, but there are people where you do have to go harder. But I think that a lot of the perception is like, if it's too light, it doesn't work. And it's like, you're just accessing a different sensory part of your body when you're going lighter. It doesn't mean it's not working. It's just working on something a little different. And your issues may not be down here. Your issues are like, you've been muscle guarding for 20 years because you have grief stuck in your heart or your chest. So you've been shutting your body down. So you were muscle guarded. And then you go to get a massage and you say, but it doesn't work if it's too light. So you have to break through my muscle guarding. And that's just re-injuring. The benefit of massage, good massage that you need, not massage that you think works for everybody, right? Like, there's a lot of different kinds. That's why I'm like, it is so broad, just massage, and how many techniques are out there and how many different approaches to the body there is. The most basic benefit is just awareness, body awareness. I mean, that's the first step towards anything, really. Like, stop denying and just becoming aware, or becoming more sensitive and being like, oh, I see this. It has my attention. And I'm not trying to figure anything out. I'm just feeling and being like, oh, interesting. I have a lot of grief here. Okay. I don't have to do anything about it yet. I'm just taking that moment of letting that information loop come into my brain. And then the brain is like, oh, okay. Then we're just adjusting things maybe. And then there might be something to do later, but you just come at it in an organic way, I guess.
Yeah. So that's kind of what meditation does for me, is I sometimes get overstimulated, I think, by too many things going on at once. And then I think it's Dr. Amisha Jha talks about the juggler as a form of your awareness. And it's like what's holding everything at the same time. And so there's things that I'm not aware of that are affecting me presently. And so when I meditate, I'm able to drop a lot of that. But I like that what you said about how massage does that, because that's kind of what I was alluding to before, is I'm so relaxed. I think it must put you in that theta wave state, which is what essentially meditation does. Mm-hmm. But I want to touch on that fact you were talking about, the deep tissue cycle. I've definitely been there. Mm-hmm. I think one of the first few massages I got, I was like, yeah, that felt nice, but I wish she would have had a little bit more pressure. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, my brain jumped to, well, we need deep tissue then. Mm-hmm. And I've definitely had great results from that. But yeah, there's definitely been times where I leave and I'm like, I'm injured.
Did that address what was bothering me? Right. Or did it just go, was it a Swedish that was just much harder,
Yeah, so when we weren't recording, you were talking about a study done with a football team.
Oh, yeah.
And how the lightest touch on their toes helped with their flexibility.
A 10-minute toe massage increased their range of motion and flexion. And I don't remember the exact specifics because this is something I remember from my training, which was 15 years ago. But I do remember that always stood out to me that, like, it's not just about stretching. Like, it's more, it's actually also a neural loop, like, feedback system that always stuck out to me. Like, a 10-minute toe massage can increase your range of motion and flexion, forward flexion to touch your toes. And I was just like, whoa, it blew my mind because it made me think so differently about my body and how it works. And it's not just like, oh, well, I'm just not doing the right things, or I'm not stretching enough, or I'm too restricted. It's like, oh, well, maybe my brain isn't getting the right stimulation or information. It's pretty wild. The body is such a wild place.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it sort of makes sense too, as far as we were also talking about psychedelic therapy and things like that. Part of the reason why that works is it fires all your neurons at the same time. So it's like becoming aware of the entire sensory network. And you're going to obviously accomplish that. We just named 3 different ways.
Just say, massage, psychedelics, and what was the third one?
Meditation.
Meditation.
So you said that was 15 years ago is when you graduated?
Well, yeah.
I mean, just go through some of the stories, I guess. You must have a lot of stories of different massage experiences.
Yeah. Like giving massages?
Mm-hmm. You guys also trade massages.
Yes, yeah. So I don't know. I love massage. I honestly think I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. There have been some wild stories. I don't want to sound crazy, but like people's bodies doing things that don't make sense, I guess, or at least sense in the way that what on the broad surface we understand about bodies, like straight up changing, like with my hand on them, and I can feel, their leg lengthen. I mean, it's incredibly fascinating and intriguing. If you can bring your attention down to the specific little micro changes, if you can hold space. I think that's why it's so important to do your own work, because I wouldn't be able to do this kind of work if I hadn't done my own therapy and done my own healing to be able to clear out my gunk so that I can then more quietly in a theta space or in a meditated space be able to like hold space for somebody else. And like I might be holding a hip for 5 minutes, just holding and like waiting and feeling and noticing. And then something crazy happens and you're like, oh my God, Like,
Yeah.
and then they're like, oh my God. And it's just, it gives me goosebumps talking
It
about
does.
it.
I just got goosebumps remembering like when I feel a muscle that's super tight, like
just
release. There is nothing better.
It's incredible. It's like this feeling of weightlessness, but feeling like the absence of tension is wild. It's crazy. It feels amazing.
It feels like joy spreading from that spot across your whole body.
It's like this cooling sensation that is like softening. And then it feels like your whole body can just let go.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, my whole body was holding because of that spot. That spot was pulling. It was everything.
What does that feel like for you? I've asked this question to one of my massage therapists because when I feel them going over some of those muscles, I can feel the ridges of the scar tissue.
Yeah.
And he did not know how to, he was kind of taken aback by that question, I think. But
like, what does it feel like?
Yeah. What do you feel in your hands or?
Oh man, I feel it. Okay. So a lot of times people will say, feel this bump here.
Yeah.
What is that bump? And then I'll feel it. And I'm like, oh, well, that's your, let's say it's your levator scap that's really tight and you're kind of flipping over the muscle because the muscle is ropey, right?
Right.
So if it's tight and you're coming in and you kind of flip over it and it moves around, that's not like a loose screw or something. It's like you're just bumping over the muscle. The body is way more bumpy and ropey, and it depends on the person. Like you could have a lot of restriction, and that restriction is going to create a lot of tight spots in the body. And then, through manually, like you're making dough, like kneading dough. That idea though is like you're manually releasing tension, and then the places that stay tight after you massage an arm, it becomes much easier to feel like, oh, well, that's where the restriction is. That's where the fascia has restricted and become dehydrated, which then a lot of times that's what a knot is like dehydrated stuck fascia, which is fascia is it's sort of like the saran wrap of the body. And so it really should be viscous and fluid, like glue, before it hardens. That's what I always think of.
Yeah.
You should be able to take your skin and move it over the muscles. That's hydrated, loose, good fascia. And whenever you're not, and so it doesn't pump itself, by the way. So when you're moving and active, walking, that's what's moving the fascia through the body. And so whenever you are still or sit a lot or have a lot of non-movement, that fascia becomes more hardened and dehydrated and it starts to stick together. And then you get like everything's tight. So you can feel all of that. I mean, whenever you've been putting your hands on bodies for 15 years, every kind of body, I mean, you just like, you have big legs, you have little legs, you have weirdly shaped legs. Like all of it is like, but it's all a leg. You're like, oh, there's the rectus femoris, there's, the gastrocs. They just might feel different, but like you can palpate them and feel them. It's pretty cool.
It struck me at some point when I was getting a massage. She was asking me a bunch of questions. It was one of those first appointment type things. And so she's asking me lots of questions as she's not really working on one spot, just kind of feeling along or whatever, where she might want to hit. And at one point I said, I was like, I think I carry a lot of my stress in my shoulders. And she got up there and she was like, oh my God. And
I can see it. I'm actually getting to the point where I can look at people now and be like, you probably have headaches here. You probably struggle with a low back thing. Just because you look at people's posture all the time.
Yeah.
Like that's what you're looking at. Because that's what's going to tell you, oh, if the right shoulder is high, then something's going to be weird on the left side of the hip. And you can just see, but yeah, I can see your tight shoulders.
Yeah, I've been trying to sit up straight the whole time.
No, yeah, you're good.
But yeah, that's when it really hit me. I was like, what it must feel like to feel someone who's like never had a massage, how much like that would feel different than as opposed to someone who comes in?
It's insanely different. I actually have a client right now that is one of the tightest clients that I have ever worked on. There's just no movement. Then there's people that come in and they have a form of hypermobility, so their joints are less tight. They have too much elastin in their ligaments, so they have a lot of muscle tension because the muscle tension tries to hold the joints together. But you can just take their arm like forever, and they're like, "Oh, is this supposed to be a stretch?" And I'm like, "It's not." Okay, so we have to make adjustments then. It is a wide range of differences of how bodies can feel. It's always interesting because then if you kind of get an idea of this is where generally people should be able to lift their arm straight up above their head. Maybe it's not all perfect, but if you can't go past here, that's something's wrong. And so, when somebody has a lot of movement on the rest of their body, but then this is like this, it's like, okay, there's dysfunction there. So like movement is a really big indicator of what's going on in the body, and like how fascia moves, how do the joints move, how do the arms move, how does the neck move. Does somebody just have this much range of motion? Then that is like tight fascia, tight muscles, there's restriction. And who knows what it came from, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. Bodies are pretty cool.
Say someone doesn't have the means to go hire somebody to give a massage. Is there anything that we can do on our own?
Mm-hmm. Dude, like walking, going for a 20-minute walk a day, like is going to do more for your body than a lot of stuff that costs, like not more than a lot of stuff that costs money. I just mean like if that's what you can do, get your heart rate up a little bit. It doesn't even have to be a lot, like even a 30-minute walk. I know we all hear that, right? Like go for a walk, but it's like it really does. Like you're moving your fascia, you're increasing blood flow, which is cleaning your body out. Like that's how you can clean your body out. And then if you can, like I just tell people, even if you can do just some PE gym class stretching and a 20 to 30-minute walk a day is, I mean, if you do that every day for a week, I guarantee you're going to feel different in your body.
Oh, for sure. I had a physical therapist tell me, and it just stuck in my brain because I get a lot of like, I don't want to, after the working all day, I do not want to go in there and get on my treadmill. But I sit there and I repeat to myself what she told me, which was motion is lotion. And I think that's...
Ooh, motion is lotion. Yeah, that's good.
I love that saying. It makes me get out of the chair every time. Like, just go in there.
And I will say, so I'm going to bring it back to the mental health thing. And I'm going to say an experience that I had actually just recently. Over the weekend, I had a pretty big dip in my mental health. I got into a pretty strong freeze response where I literally could not get out of bed or get off the couch. And I will say I literally couldn't force myself to go take a walk or to go stretch, right? So I remember being like, what is it? What is going on that is causing me to feel this disconnected from my body, that I cannot do my normal stuff? And I don't know, for 3 days, I was just like on the couch. Luckily, I had a therapy appointment scheduled on Monday, it was like the third day. And I barely got there, but I had an EMDR session that really cleared out some fear and shame, I would say. Literally though, like that one session, reprocessing some old trauma, and the way I felt going into that therapy session and the way I felt coming out of it, I had so much energy. It was insane. I cleaned my office and put up these curtains, and it didn't feel like force. So I do want to also point out that if you can't go for a walk and if you can't stretch, go to therapy. It's coming back to that neural feedback loop, right? Trauma, it got triggered in me in a really deep way, in an old way. And so no amount of going for a walk, I don't think would have, made it would, it might have, I mean, I couldn't make myself do it.
Right.
It was literally like, whatever. So I would say if you can't get massage, if you can't go for a walk, if you can't stretch, call a friend or, have somebody come over and sit with you and maybe just have them put their hand on your knee. Or if you don't have that, then reach out to, there's hotlines. Or I just think that mental health, our nervous systems are so integrated with our bodies that taking care of our body, there are resources out there. I mean, there's places you can go get massage for a little bit cheaper than other places.
Yeah, Wellspring used to do that. I don't know if they still do, but
I don't know if they still do either.
And in those instances, it's like finding something, just
find something, anything,
clean something.
Yeah, take a shower, take a bath, go sit in the sunlight, go stand in the grass.
And sometimes taking away is better than adding something to the mix. So that's where I found meditation was there are some times where it's like, I enjoy playing video games from time to time. And back in the day, I used to play them a lot. And I realized that I was just distracting. Which is good sometimes, but not constantly.
I also played video games growing up and stuff. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think that it's with anything. Are you doing it all the time? Are you avoiding something? Are you enjoying something? Yeah.
But I like the thing you said about having a friend come over and just lay a hand on your shoulder, because I don't know if I've said this on the podcast yet, but I'm training to get my meditation teaching certificate. And one of the last classes that we had, or the last lecture we had, we were talking about the benefits of group meditation and why there were perceived benefits to that as opposed to having your own practice by yourself.
I feel like it's called body mirroring, I think, or something like that, where I do really well if somebody just comes over to my house and sits there. I can function differently versus just by myself. I wonder if that's the same.
Yeah, but that's definitely part of it. The thing that we keyed in on was, so our bodies put off electromagnetic fields. And so when there's everybody in that group meditating, there's all these little waves that are coinciding. And that goes with, doctors have found that we sleep better in a pair as opposed to by ourselves, or even with a dog, your breathing synchronizes.
Well, I think they've even measured, like, I've heard this, and fact check me if I'm wrong, but that they've measured the electromagnetic field of the heart itself extends about 12 feet. So if you're with 12 feet of a person, your two electrical magnetic fields are mixing, which I think is a lot of how people get vibes off people. Or like, like if they're functioning at a really high frequency and somebody's functioning at a really low frequency, you're going to be able to tell that.
And taking it back to, what you can do in those moments, there is definitely something to, I always feel better as well. Like nothing will pull me out of it than my best friend coming over and being like, all right, dude, like, let's talk. Or especially with my friends, we have the whole bro hug thing going on or whatever, but it is incredible when I'm in a bad mood, he comes over and he just instantly, he's like, come here, bro. And we just hug it out. And that, I don't know how many other guys out there would do that, but I am so thankful for him.
Yeah, they're out there.
Yeah, because something changes in that moment, and it's like you drop everything.
You're helping each other. There's a regulation that's happening, so your nervous system is getting a little bit regulated by his nervous system. It's always interesting. I think that's another reason why doing somatic work with somebody who has really done the work themselves, so their nervous system can be more of a regulator, because as you're working on somebody who is very unregulated, you can help, like their nervous system can feel your anger, if you will, And so that's sort of the same thing, like a hug, like doing trauma somatic work it's so important for you, the practitioner to be doing their own work and to be able to hold space for somebody's maybe very wildly unregulated nervous system that might get crazy. But I think that just goes back into the idea of, I think as humans, we're meant to be around each other
100%.
and that's where healing happens, like in community. And there's, in our Western culture, our Western medical system, everything is so sterile. Everything is so like disease based or whatever. And it's like, actually, like humans have been helping each other heal for thousands of years because it's naturally in our evolution, in our DNA to do that.
How can people get a hold of you and book a massage?
Well, I have a website. It's called KaraBryant.com. You can schedule through that. I also have an Instagram, Kara Bryant Massage and Somatics.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on.